Hello, my dear guest. Today I'll be telling you the tale of the Mad Toymaker. This man enjoyed making many fun toys such as wind-up toy soldiers, wooden jesters on string, or even wonderful dancing dolls. He loved his work every day, selling to all who would wish to buy the toys. Until one day a bunch of men came about and said of how they would like to make a deal with the Toymaker, which the Toymaker wondered of this deal they spoke of. That being, they can offer protection for a good chunk of the profit the Toymaker would get from his shop, which the Toymaker about to kindly decline. The men went already knowing the Toymaker's answer, had gone to beat him down to get the answer they wanted from him, which the Toymaker did in horrible pain. But the man who asked him this offer to have a good day and to pay them their cut when they come back in a week, leaving the Toymaker's shop while also collecting their cut for the day. The Toymaker made already, and for a while, leaving so little for the Toymaker as for days went on, the Toymaker continued on his work, and he had to pay the crooks the amount they wished, barely living day by day, the money he was left with, growing thin and pale, barely to afford food, and keeping his home. He had no choice but to live in his shop. Saddened deeply by the situation he was in, he continued on working day in and day out, paying off the men as much as he could until one busy afternoon, the Toymaker finally was exhausted, falling to the ground, with customers seeing him in this state. Tried to take him to the hospital, but the crooks arrived, saying of what they were doing, as of course one of them spoke of how they will be taking the Toymaker to the hospital, but the crooks said that no one would be taking anybody anywhere, and with a simple sway of the hand, the men began to beat upon everyone who tried to help the Toymaker, having the Toymaker with all his strength beg for all the men to stop beating people, and says of how he'll continue his work and continue to pay them. And with one command, the leader told his men to stop, as the Toymaker went to check and help the people that helped him. Suddenly, the leader commanded the group to gun down every person except the Toymaker. As the Toymaker watched in horror, as the gang was gunning all the people who were trying to help him, hearing the screams that went on until eventually grew silent. The man who was in command said of how this was to make sure the Toymaker keeps his promise, having them take the bodies, young and old, to dispose of. The Toymaker alone, he cried to himself and yelled out in pain for hours, with his mind broken to all the death that had transpired, wishing it was him and not all those people, crying for a good long while, until he had no more tears to shed. another week to go by. As the gang came to collect, they arrived to the shop, but the Toymaker wasn't in front of the shop to pay. So they went inside, but still no sign of the Toymaker, having them go to the workshop area in the back, seeing many symbols and a smiling face on the wall, and a jack-in-the-box before any of them got a chance to say anything. The door behind them closed, locking them in, with them trying to open it as hard as they could, but wouldn't budge. When suddenly, the jack-in-the-box crank began to turn, with a twisted version of Pop Goes the Weasel began to play, a dreaded sound to be heard for the men that were there, horrified to the twisted song, not even realizing massive metallic hands from the darkness of the room, reaching out and crushed many of the men to death, ripping their flesh as they screamed for their lives, until becoming meat dolls for the metallic hands to use as undead soldiers, which the metallic hands controlling their bodies made the dolls feast upon the rest, with the leftover men trying to gun the undead allies down, but to no effect, as each man were pinned down and were feasted upon, having the Toymaker appear from the darkness, thin and very pale, but was able to move, saying of how this is the true judgment the gang deserved for what they did to him, and most especially all the kind people who tried to help him. With the Toymaker walking up to the men who were treated as a meal for the dolls, with them begging and screaming not to die, as the Toymaker gave them a dead glare. With a simple sway of his finger, he had the dolls finish them all off, to have silence come about, as many smiling specters appeared from the darkness, many young and old from their size. The Toymaker went and made a special doll made of bones from the gang's bodies, with a smiling face, having the Toymaker say of how they can rest in peace, with the smiling specters disappearing into the dark, with the large metallic claws surrounding the Toymaker, accepting what was to come next, to a new world ahead. Well, I hope you enjoyed that tale, as I remember being told this by him. He was able to avenge happily those people and went to create a world where he could continue to make toys for all in his domain, enjoying every day that goes by. So I do hope you have a wonderful day, and always keep that smile on your face.